Welcome back to the National Defense. It's Randy Miller. And, man, I'll tell you what, we're always talking about Team Rubicon because they're always out there fighting the good fight, any disaster, any kind of humanitarian effort, and, of course, veteran-led, serving global communities before, during, and after disasters and crises, which is very important. And our good friend Artley De La Cruz is with us once again from the Naval Academy, hotshot jet pilot to CEO of Team Rubicon, and is a short timer now because he's getting ready to leave that position. And want to find out what is up with all of that. Art, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thanks for having me back, Randy.
Man, it's always great to talk to you, Art. You've been such a great friend of the show for the many years that you've been at Team Rubicon. And you guys are on top of things in Texas right now, right, with the flooding?
Yeah, we're actually here as I speak. I'm in San Antonio, and yesterday I was in Kerr County, specifically near Hunt and Kerrville, where the, terrible tragedy unfolded over the July 4th weekend. And we have volunteers here and in an adjacent county that are doing what we typically do, which is helping people on their worst day by donating their time and energy to showing up and making a difference.
A lot of gray shirts down there, and not just that, but the CEO. You don't think of CEOs as mucking out buildings near disaster sites, but that's exactly where you were, huh?
Yeah, it's an immense amount of pride, and frankly, one of the best parts of my job is to be there next to the people that my role is designed to enable. Ultimately, Team Rubicon happens because we get volunteers, as you called them, we call them affectionately as gray shirts. They're the real secret sauce. So to sit there side by side in a flooded room, ripping out drywall or wet carpeting, knowing that you're going to make someone's tomorrow better and you're delivering some piece of hope is just an amazing affirmation of the role and the amazing affirmation of the impact that people can have if they decide to make a difference.
Yeah, and not only just the flooding in Texas there, but you guys are taking care of severe storms in Minnesota, tropical storm in North Carolina. How is the situation, Art, there in Kerrville? Yeah,
it's quite honestly, I've seen a lot of flooding in the past few years from, Asheville, North Carolina, the hollers of Kentucky. But Kerr County in particular was really, really emotional because of the loss of life. Anybody who's a parent, and, I know you're a grandfather, as a father of, two daughters and two sons. I think everybody across the country in some way could connect.
Oh, yeah.
This was a significant event. And, it's also amazing to see that, in a way it, bonds the community and moves them forward. But there's still, yesterday we still saw the search and rescue, crews moving about. Debris is everywhere. But again, you begin to see those slivers of sunlight and recovery, there. But again, our thoughts and our prayers, remain with the people, especially those who lost loved ones.
Absolutely. And so many people still missing too. And, it's, I know when that first happened and you're watching the video and the pictures of that disaster, it's almost, for somebody that's not there, it's almost unfathomable to even imagine how that can happen, number one, but then number two, how people are going to come out the other side of that.
Yeah, it is a long journey, right? For these people. And I think that's one of those parts. And you mentioned people who feel this, they understand it. They're on the other side of a television screen and they have, these incredible feelings, these human feelings of empathy. And then they go into action in some form or way. They donate or they volunteer in whatever capacity it is. And it's really amazing to see how, we can begin to take, some bite out of that mountain of things that need to be done for these survivors of these tragedies. But again, it was very, very emotional. And I've been doing this, in this role for 9 years with Team Rubicon, but this one really, really hit home.
And we're talking to Art De La Cruz here, the National Defense CEO of Team Rubicon. Well, Art, let's talk a little bit about that, Art. I mean, 9 years ago when you joined your buddy Jake Wood at Team Rubicon and began your role there, what drew you to that, number one? And did it turn out to be exactly what you kind of envisioned it to be?
What really drew me to the role is something I think a lot of veterans experience in their transition, and that, I had this void. I'd lost community identity and purpose that I wore with the uniform. And I was able to find it when in February of 2016, Jake looked at me and said, "Hey, you want to make a big bet and do something special?" And off we were, right? And this is after 22 years in uniform, 2.5 years in the corporate world. And to your second question there, the neat thing about that journey is I had no idea what to expect. So everything that happened was supposed to happen. And it was incredible growth for me. It was incredible growth for my family. And probably most importantly, is you can turn around at the end of 9 years. And I can look at the volunteers and go, there are more volunteers because of, the vision and the audacity we had. You can look at the dashboard and say, we're helping more people in more communities. So it was completely nonlinear. It was surprising at every turn. But in retrospect, I suppose it was exactly the way it was supposed to be, and certainly a journey that I'm incredibly, incredibly proud of, and have high expectations for, my successor in the future of this organization at a time when the nation is going to need us more than ever.
Yeah, and Art, I'm just looking at some of the numbers here on the Team Rubicon website. 280,000. This is of last at the end of last year. 280,000 plus volunteer hours, 3 million plus individuals impacted, 830 plus communities served as of the end of last year. That's got to be something you look at and you're just absolutely proud about.
Yeah, and that's, those are the outputs, those are the numbers. I think the things that really I take immense pride in are the fact that our volunteers, they believe Team Rubicon is one of the best places to volunteer. They believe, they understand, that we have an obligation as, from the volunteer to the CEO to serve more communities and serve more people. And it's just kind of this virtuous cycle where we grow and we continue to maintain that capacity. As I like to tell donors, don't make a donation to Team Rubicon, consider this an investment, because I'm going to show that in people who come back year after year. I'm going to show it in, a house that allows kids to come back to a safe environment day after day after day, or a community, that gets back on its feet faster, see it, feel it, be a part of it, instead of just giving it away and, turning it into something that gets dropped off on a doorstep. So I'm immensely, immensely proud. And, I try to maintain my humility, but man, I'll brag all day about our volunteers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's talk about impactful. And I want to go back to that investment because, you're not only investing in communities, but you're investing in people and you're investing in rebuilding the country. And, that's the thing that we have to do. If you go to teamrubiconusa.org, you can find out more about Team Rubicon, but teamrubiconusa.org. Art, in the 9 years that you've been there and all of the disaster situations that you've seen, is there any kind of an arc there? Is there any kind of a way you can look at all of that and say, boy, things are getting worse, things are the same, things are cyclical? What's your take on that over the past 9 years?
Over the past 9 years, I think the arc is what we are building is needed now more than ever. And I think very specifically of last week, multiple freshwater flooding events just in 1 week. It floods in North Carolina because of Tropical Storm Chantal. Obviously, the flooding here in Kerr County and the surrounding counties. The monsoon season creates this incredible flooding in New Mexico that we're responding to both those other events, as we speak. And just the frequency, the destruction, the intensity of the storms, all of that kind of focuses me and the organization and going, we have to position ourselves to be able to do more in the future because we're already behind in our ability to respond as a country. So we're happy to be a piece of it. And the other thing, the other arc that's really, really incredible, and I ask every one of my volunteers this, is I ask them, why are you here? And typically she or he will say, I am here because I saw this and I want to make a difference. And what I challenge them to realize is that by volunteering, you're actually taking care of yourself. It is in our human fabric. I'm a big believer to care for the people around us. And it's really, really empowering. And it feels really, really amazing and good because you have power and you make a difference.
And it's a brand new mission. We're talking to Artley De La Cruz, CEO of Team Rubicon here on the National Defense. And yeah, I mean, you talk about, not only helping these communities and helping the volunteers, but I can't imagine, Art, over the last 9 years, how much you've seen, how much you've impacted, and how much you've grown as a person. And whatever you go to next, it's going to bore the hell out of you. I mean, I can't imagine you're going to have anything. You wake up in the morning with Team Rubicon, you have no idea what you're walking into. So, unless I don't know what you're going to do next, but I can't imagine it's going to be as exciting as Team Rubicon.
Yeah, it's funny. Part of my decision was, when Hurricane Milton and Helene happened, and then in the fall, and when the fires happened in January, and even the validation of what the teams are doing on the ground here in Texas. I spent 9 years, the first 9 years of my time here, looking around and going, okay, this is what I'm going to fix next. And last fall, and because of the amazing talent that is drawn to our mission, I became a spectator. I watched them and I said, I don't know what to fix at this point in time.
That's a nice feeling.
Yeah. And, that's what really energizes me. But, the other piece of it was, a commitment I'd made to Jake and the board of directors is I said, when I can't move the needle the way I'm used to doing, it's time to find the person who can. And, we'll soon announce the successor here. But the ideas and the experiences and all of this, again, that arc you just asked about, someone else is on a different one that will put the trajectory of Team Rubicon higher, and it'll move faster and farther than I could take it. And I think, ultimately stepping aside and admiring it and becoming just a volunteer gray shirt, an amazing gray shirt, is the right thing for me as a leader to do. So I'm excited. I think my wife is more afraid of, how am I going to get this guy out of the house? But that's her problem.
That's a different disaster.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about your family. I mean, they've got it kind of goes one way or the other. I know when I stopped doing morning radio and I was hanging around the kitchen, my wife had no idea what to do with me. She just, can you go somewhere? Can you do something? And so, you may have a little bit of that, Art, but I think you've always got such a calm demeanor, and I would imagine in your role as Team Rubicon, you've got to have that kind of mentality, right? Going in, and you and I have talked before about assessment, and Team Rubicon is the best at assessment, going in and recognizing the situation and what you need to do first, and that's got to be one of your key components, right?
Oh, for sure. And I think it's not just recognizing what we have to do. It's taking action when you don't know exactly what you're supposed to do. One of the things I think I took from my time, in Navy fighters was this understanding that, nothing ever goes according to plan, but your ability to, adapt in that moment and get back on the plan you want is really where the power is. And that's, again, nobody can predict what Mother Nature is going to do. I like to think of it as a bit of Mad Libs. You don't know what the disaster is. You don't know where it's going to strike and when it's going to strike. But when it does, that's time for the organization to spring into action.
Yeah, and boy, does it ever. I mean, in terms of what you guys have set up over the past 9 years and those kind of situations where you can implement something immediately And you got, we've talked before about the volunteers that the Team Rubicon has all different skill levels. So, some guy's good with a chainsaw. Some lady might be good at, picking up trash. Everybody's got their own kind of sets of skills that they bring to this, right?
Yeah. You look at the individual, and this is a really important part of it is we ask them, what do you want to do? And I think they're fantastic at their own assessment of what's going to drive them forward and fulfill them. And then we train them as we can. Obviously their safety is paramount, ensuring we don't, do any more harm than we do. But it's
Sure.
the journey that they decide to take, which is really, really amazing and to a large extent unlimited, because you can continue your trajectory of growth. You can decide when you're going to go out and use those skills. And, know it or not, especially for military veterans, there is all sorts of stuff that you experienced while in uniform that you had no idea you could use again, from leadership to safety to decision-making. It's all there.
That's interesting. Yeah, I bet that is so true. And, when people get involved, you talk about taking somebody out of their comfort zone. Team Rubicon takes people out of their comfort zone every single day. But that's that's that growth. That's that mission-oriented mindset. I've seen on your website a couple of different times, where people have been serving in disaster areas and they say, I've been in war. This is worse.
Yeah, I think we have some of those recollections. And another thing, and we actually heard it yesterday from a volunteer, is it's a bit like war, but it's also something you can do something about.
Yes.
We have people who say, we brought back this burden, or we've experienced this. This time I don't feel powerless. This time I can take, an action. This time I can continue to train or deliver services as my life allows. So it's really, really, interesting and empowering. And I think it has some really neat, in addition to saving, helping these survivors, it really, really promotes well-being. It combats loneliness. It creates personal and community resilience. So it's not just about the impact of the services, which are tangible, but it's also about the enduring impact on the people who do it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we talk to a lot of veterans on this program who have been in combat, and sometimes I'll ask them, so do you feel like you made a difference? And a lot of times the answer is, I don't know. I don't know if I made a difference. And with Team Rubicon, you can look around at the end of your journey there and not only know, Art, that you made a difference, but every single volunteer can say that too.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Yesterday, I spent about, 7 hours mucking out a house that had been flooded literally to the ceiling of the bottom floor. And when we went in there was probably 6 inches of mud in the room. Everything was flooded out. And when we turned around at the end of the day, it was down to the studs. It was drying out. Mold, to a large extent was halted in its tracks. There was a pile of, soaked debris outside the door that a skid steer will pick up and, they'll dispose of. And, I thought, wow, we made a difference today. And I know when that homeowner comes in and walks through that front door and says, oh my God, that's not a problem anymore, I can move forward. That's when you really feel the compounding, impact of compassion, of actually taking those feelings and going, I'm going to make a difference. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was definitely different.
Well, and, we've talked about this before too. I mean, to see something in Kerrville, Texas, if you're in, Kansas City, Missouri, that's one thing, but there may be other disasters that you don't, connect with as a TV viewer, as watching the news or whatever. But I guarantee you, every disaster is as big to that person as any other disaster. You know what I mean by that? I mean, when it's impacting you, that's a disaster.
Yeah. And we actually have a name for that. We call it low attention disasters, and they are happening on a daily basis. Yesterday there were tornadoes in Wisconsin that I'm certain impacted someone, and they might not be in a community. And certainly, the press is probably not there, with cameras and putting it on the front page of the newspaper. But that survivor is staring at this immense amount of work that needs to be done. And our goal as community members and as stewards of, incredible responsibilities to make investment turn into action is we want to be there. If it's one house on 100 acres, or if it's, one of 1,000 homes on, quarter acre lots, we still have an obligation, because your point is spot on, Randy. For the individual or the family that's impacted, it is a mountain of work in front of them. And, who better to help than community?
Well, Art, listen, I can't thank you enough for the time that you've given us over the past 9 years that you've been with Team Rubicon. I can just wish you great success in whatever you do, and I have no doubt that you'll have that success. It's just been a pleasure getting to know you, and I just thank you. It's kind of weird. You look back at what Team Rubicon has been involved in the past 9 years, and you say, where would people be without Team Rubicon? I mean, it's kind of scary to think about that.
Yeah. But it's also really energizing to think of where won't people have to be because of Team Rubicon. And that's where, I could not be more grateful for the time, we've spent together. Randy, I could not be more grateful for the time you spent in, promoting amazing work by men and women who volunteer. And I can't wait to, call you up from the field sometime as just a volunteer, an amazing volunteer, to say, Randy, here's a great story to tell.
That would be great. And as we always tell anybody that asks us here on the program, how do I help veterans? Where do I support? Team Rubicon. You go to Team Rubicon, and because for my money, that's the team that's getting it done. So, Art, thank you so much, man, and just God bless you and your family.
Thank you, friend, and I look forward to staying in touch. And I hope, regardless of the path you walked before, civilian, first responder, law enforcement, military, please consider joining our work, because there's so much to be done. Absolutely. So thank you again, Randy.
Thank you, Art. That's really, really great to talk to you, and we'll be right back here on the National Defense.